The Body Beneath the Marble, Human Dissection and the Strange Alliance Between Art and Science. 1. Candlelight and Coldstone. In the middle of the night, beneath the silence of Renaissance churches and hospitals, artists stood beside dead bodies with knives in their hands. The air smelled of wax, blood, damp stone, and decay. Candles trembled against cathedral walls. Outside, Florence slept peacefully. Inside, some of history's greatest artists were secretly cutting open human corpses, not because they were murderers, because they wanted to understand beauty. Today, we separate science from art as if they belong to different worlds. Science belongs to laboratories and hospitals. Art belongs to museums and galleries. But during the Renaissance, the two were inseparable. To paint the human body truthfully, artists believed they first had to understand what existed beneath the skin. That belief changed history forever. What began as artistic curiosity slowly became anatomy, medicine, philosophy, and even a new understanding of humanity itself. 2. Leonardo's obsession with the human machine. Leonardo da Vinci is remembered today as a painter, inventor, and genius, but at night he became something else entirely, an anatomist. Between the late 1400s and early 1500s, Leonardo dissected more than 30 human bodies. He worked in hospitals such as Santa Maria Nuova in Florence, often by candlelight, carefully opening corpses to study muscles, veins, bones, and organs. At first, his goal was artistic accuracy. He wanted painted bodies to move naturally. He wanted shoulders to twist correctly and hands to carry tension. But the deeper he explored the body, the more fascinated he became by life itself. Leonardo no longer studied anatomy merely to improve art. He wanted to understand the machinery of existence. Before the Renaissance, many anatomical ideas still came from ancient scholars such as Galen, who studied animals like pigs and apes because human dissection was often restricted. The body was understood more through symbolism and inherited belief than direct observation. But artists like Leonardo began treating the human body differently, not as a symbol but as unexplored geography. Muscles became landscapes, veins became rivers, bones became architecture. In many ways, Renaissance anatomy transformed the body into a newly discovered continent, waiting to be mapped. His notebooks filled with breathtaking drawings of skeletons, hearts, skulls, muscles, and unborn children. He carefully traced blood vessels like rivers across a landscape. He sketched the spine with astonishing precision. 5 centuries later, many of his anatomical observations still impress modern doctors. And yet there was nothing glamorous about the work. Bodies decayed quickly in the Renaissance. There was no refrigeration, no electric light, no modern preservation. Leonardo described the horror of spending nights surrounded by dissected corpses, quartered and flayed in dark rooms. But somehow, when he drew the body afterward, the horror disappeared. What remained was beauty. That contradiction sits at the center of Renaissance anatomy. Death became the path toward lifelike art. 3. Michelangelo and the muscles beneath the skin. Leonardo was not alone in this pursuit. Michelangelo, the sculptor of David and painter of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, also dissected corpses in secret. As a teenager, he gained access to dead bodies through the Church of Santo Spirito in Florence. In exchange for carving a wooden crucifix for the church, he was allowed to study corpses inside its hidden rooms. Michelangelo became obsessed with muscle, not simply how it looked, but how it stretched, tightened, and carried force beneath the skin. He studied tendons pulling against bone. He learned that the body moved like an elaborate mechanical system. That knowledge transformed marble into living flesh. When viewers stand before David today, they often feel an almost supernatural realism. Veins rise beneath the statue's hands, muscles tighten around the neck. The body seems ready to breathe. Michelangelo understood something revolutionary. Beauty was not smooth perfection. Beauty was tension, structure, movement. Ironically, some of history's most magnificent religious artworks were shaped through direct contact with death. 4. The missing female body. But Renaissance anatomy had an important silence. The ideal human body studied by artists was usually male. Female dissections were far rarer and surrounded by deeper taboo. Religious fear, cultural restrictions, and modesty made access to female bodies extremely limited. As a result, many Renaissance artists understood male anatomy far better than female anatomy. This shaped art itself. The women painted by Michelangelo on the Sistine Chapel ceiling often appear strangely muscular, almost like male bodies with softer features added afterward. The artists were using the anatomical knowledge they had available. In a strange way, science shaped beauty. What artists could not study properly, they could not fully represent. Leonardo, however, pushed further than many of his contemporaries. His anatomical studies included pregnant women and unborn fetuses. His famous drawings of a child inside the womb remain hauntingly beautiful centuries later. There is something deeply symbolic about these sketches. The male body became public anatomy. The female body remained mysterious. One was measured openly in studios and academies. The other was hidden behind fear, modesty, and cultural anxiety. Even during a period called the rebirth of knowledge, some forms of knowledge remained forbidden. 5. Whose bodies taught Europe about beauty? Renaissance anatomy also carried a darker ethical question. Whose bodies were being opened? For centuries, dissections often depended on the bodies of executed criminals, the poor, the abandoned, or the socially unwanted. Public dissections were sometimes performed on criminals after execution as part of their punishment. In later centuries, grave robbing became common as medical schools demanded more bodies for study. The wealthy protected graves with iron cages called mort safes, while poorer cemeteries remained vulnerable. This creates a disturbing irony at the heart of Renaissance art. The marble statues, celebrated as symbols of universal human beauty, were often built upon the bodies of society's forgotten people. The poor taught Europe how to sculpt heroes. The condemned taught painters how to paint angels. Many of the dead who shaped Western anatomy were never honored by name. Yet their bodies became silent textbooks for artists, surgeons, and scientists. Today, modern medical schools often hold memorial ceremonies for donated bodies after dissections are complete. Families attend. Students stand silently beside the remains of the people who taught them anatomy. Perhaps this tradition exists because medicine eventually recognized something important. A body is never just an object. It belonged to a person. 6. From secret sketchbooks to printed science. Leonardo filled thousands of pages with anatomical sketches and notes, but most of his work remained hidden for centuries after his death. Then came a revolution: printing. In 1543, the Flemish anatomist Andreas Vesalius published De Humani Corporis Fabrica, one of the most important anatomy books ever created. Unlike Leonardo's private notebooks, Vesalius's work reached the public, and it was beautiful. The book's illustrations showed dissected bodies standing dramatically across Italian landscapes, muscles peeled from the skin like layers of cloth. Some figures appeared almost theatrical, posing like actors despite being anatomically exposed. Science had become visual art. For the first time, anatomy was not hidden in dark rooms or private sketches. It became mass-produced knowledge. Students across Europe could study the same images. The body became something that could be printed, copied, taught, and standardized. Anatomy left the shadows and entered the modern world. 7. Touching the structure of life. Renaissance anatomy was not only visual, it was physical. Artists did not simply look at muscles, they touched them. They felt the pull of tendons, the weight of organs, the hardness of bone beneath flesh. Some artists created écorché models, sculptures of skinless human figures showing exposed muscles and anatomy. These wax or plaster bodies became permanent teaching tools inside studios. Death was preserved in order to imitate life. This changed art forever. The body stopped being a flat image on a canvas. It became a three-dimensional structure governed by mechanics, balance, and movement. Artists began thinking almost like engineers. Leonardo himself borrowed techniques from architecture and mechanics while drawing anatomy. To him, bones acted like levers, muscles functioned like ropes. The human body became both biological and mechanical, a machine filled with emotion and spirit. Perhaps that is why Renaissance art still feels alive today. It was built from understanding, not merely observation. 8. The strange unity of art and science. Leonardo da Vinci never believed art and science were separate subjects. To him, drawing a muscle and studying a muscle were part of the same act. Painting the human body meant understanding the hidden systems that made life possible. That idea still matters. Even today, surgeons study classical sculpture. Animators examine anatomy to create believable movement. Medical illustrators combine scientific precision with artistic beauty. The partnership between art and anatomy never truly ended. Today, the knife and candlelight have largely disappeared, replaced by CT scans, MRI imaging, virtual reality, and 3D digital modeling. Medical students can now perform digital dissections using headsets and interactive anatomy software, peeling away virtual layers of muscle and bone with the movement of a hand. Even character artists at animation studios like Pixar rely on detailed anatomical modeling to create believable human movement. In a strange sense, these modern technologies are the descendants of Leonardo's notebooks, new tools built from the same ancient desire to look beneath the surface and understand what makes a human body alive. Because both artists and scientists are trying to answer the same question: what does it mean to be human? Scientists search through observation and experiment. Artists search through emotion and beauty. But both are driven by the same hunger to understand. Hidden beneath the marble statues, beneath the elegant sketches, beneath the masterpieces hanging in museums, there was always a real human body, fragile, temporary, mysterious, and mortal. The Renaissance artists opened corpses searching for perfection. Instead, they discovered something deeper, that beauty and knowledge are often born together. And sometimes the road to understanding life begins in the silence beside the dead.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Dissection. Definition: the act of cutting open a dead body, animal, or plant to study how it is made inside. Example: the medical students learned anatomy through human dissection. 2. Damp. Definition: slightly wet or full of moisture. Example: the walls of the old hospital were cold and damp. 3. Decay. Definition: the process of slowly breaking down, rotting, or becoming damaged over time. Example: the smell of decay filled the dark room. 4. Anatomy. Definition: the study of the structure of the body and its parts, such as bones, muscles, and organs. Example: Leonardo studied anatomy to draw the human body more accurately. 5. Glamorous. Definition: attractive, exciting, or full of beauty and luxury. Example: life in the Renaissance was not always as glamorous as paintings make it seem. 6. Quartered. Definition: cut into 4 parts or divided into pieces. Example: the bodies in the anatomy room were sometimes quartered for study. 7. Flayed. Definition: having the skin removed from a body or animal. Example: the artist studied flayed models to understand muscles beneath the skin. 8. Contemporaries. Definition: people who lived or existed during the same time period. Example: Leonardo and Michelangelo were famous contemporaries of the Renaissance. 9. Fetuses. Definition: unborn babies developing inside the mother's body. Example: Leonardo made detailed drawings of fetuses inside the womb. 10. Hauntingly. Definition: in a beautiful, sad, or unforgettable way that stays in your mind. Example: the music in the film was hauntingly beautiful. 11. Mortsafes. Definition: heavy iron cages placed around graves to protect dead bodies from grave robbers. Example: some families used mortsafes to keep thieves away from graves. 12. Écorché. Definition: a model or drawing of a human body without skin, showing the muscles underneath. Example: art students practice drawing from an écorché model.
Comprehension questions. 1. Why did Renaissance artists study human dissection? Answer. They studied human dissection to understand the structure of the body and create more realistic art. 2. Where did Leonardo da Vinci perform many of his dissections? Answer. He performed many dissections in hospitals, such as Santa Maria Nuova in Florence. 3. Why was Leonardo interested in anatomy at first? Answer. At first, he wanted to improve the accuracy of his paintings and drawings. 4. What happened to Leonardo's interest in anatomy over time? Answer. His interest grew beyond art, and he became fascinated by how the human body worked. 5. Why was anatomical study difficult during the Renaissance? Answer. Bodies decayed quickly. There was no refrigeration, and dissections were often done secretly at night. 6. How did Michelangelo gain access to human corpses? Answer. He was allowed to study corpses through the Church of Santo Spirito, after creating a wooden crucifix for the church. 7. What did Michelangelo learn from studying muscles and bones? Answer. He learned how the body moved, and how muscles created tension and strength. 8. Why did many Renaissance paintings of women appear masculine? Answer. Artists understood male anatomy better because female dissections were rare and more taboo. 9. What made Leonardo's drawings of unborn babies important? Answer. They were some of the earliest and most accurate drawings of fetuses inside the womb. 10. Whose bodies were often used for dissections during the Renaissance? Answer. The bodies of criminals, poor people, and abandoned people were often used. 11. What irony does the article describe about Renaissance beauty? Answer. The article explains that famous ideas of beauty were often built from studying society's forgotten or unwanted people. 12. Who was Andreas Vesalius? Answer. Andreas Vesalius was a scientist who published one of the first important anatomy books in 1543. 13. How did printing change the study of anatomy? Answer. Printing allowed anatomical knowledge and illustrations to spread across Europe more easily. 14. What are écorché models? Answer. They are models of the human body without skin, showing muscles and anatomy underneath. 15. How does the article connect Renaissance anatomy to modern technology? Answer. The article explains that modern tools like CT scans, VR anatomy programs, and digital modeling continue the same search to understand the human body.